Hello guys, and today I'm going to do an episode on the fundamentals of if you're a parent and you have a dyslexic child. This is kind of the fundamental steps and the walkthrough we're going to go on. And how I want to speak about this is that I'm doing coaching, as the same for adult dyslexia. I'm doing coaching and I've sort of spoke to a lot of parents with dyslexia. And the same things keep on cropping up time and time again. And so this is going to be our official guide. So if you're a parent and you have a dyslexic kid, here are the steps to step-by-step kind of processes and things to go through and things to realize to help you along the journey, to have you realize it, because oftentimes it can take you years and years of hard work and kind of struggling to figure these things out. And hopefully me telling you these will help you realize them a lot in advance, so you can help prepare for the hurdles that will inevitably come across. So guys, I hope you enjoy today's episode. So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be? Or in other words, conquer their dyslexia. That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast. So guys, this is the official guide for parents with children who are dyslexic. Now, I want to talk about this as if you just found out your child had dyslexia a few weeks ago. Now, in your case, it might be weeks, months, years. But also, we know that you also probably figured that there was something up for your child before they got diagnosed, and there was a own journey of diagnosing your child. Now, that could either be in school or yourself. Your school could have done it, or yourself could have done it. Now, the majority of parents I've spoke to, they figured they'd done it themselves. They paid the money. They sought out the people they've had it done. Other times, the school have had them go through the processes and go through the step-by-step systems to get it done. And either which way, I want to start off by saying this: if you're new to this, if you're not new, you kind of know this already. If you're brand new to this, it's if your child's dyslexic and if they're kind of moderately dyslexic, not kind of tiny little bit, kind of just you mean weak in certain areas, but if they're a few years behind and quite noticeable in the school setting, it's going to be a hard road. It's not going to be just because and I want to be frank and I will be honest with this. And this is the advice I'd give you to all the parents out there. So that's my dog. All the parents out there about this, because it's not going to be an easy road. Because a lot of things is going to come down to you as a parent, and it's not going to be just because your kids found out you had dyslexia. It's not the end of the road. It's the start of a new journey. It's not the end of figuring out why it has all these why is he struggling in all these areas. It's the start of a completely new journey, which in a sense is an amazing thing, because it's an amazing thing. Now you found out you had the problem. Now you found out you have this thing called dyslexia. Because remember, when my parents found out I had dyslexia from spending years and years and years trying to find out or learn about it, they were relieved. Then they found out how severe it was. They're like, oh no, another problem. But because you found out what it is, or that could be part of dyslexia and ADHD and other things, but that's a massive accomplishment. It's a massive thing for moving a step forward in life. So we've done this thing, and it's going to be a hard journey. Why is it going to be a hard journey moving forward? So one of the biggest reasons it's going to be a hard journey moving forward is because something you have to realize. And if you found out your child has dyslexia for your own means, you probably had chats with the school, and then the school hasn't been doing you're probably not happy with something the school's doing, so you decided to do something yourself. Or if the school has diagnosed your child, a lot of times it could take a while for your child to get diagnosed and for it to go down the system. The truth is, the schools are nowhere near as efficient compared to you to helping your child. The schools, I don't know if it's a 1 form, 2 form, how many kids they have there, but in the school, like, they have to deal with everyone. And everyone's kind of like on an equal playing field, and there's systems, there's processes, and there's people to deal with, and these like amazing people who've got like amazing hearts, most of them, and want to do really, really well, and like help your child. They have their own lives and they have their own things, and so they're not always. The truth is not bad. There's not always thinking about your child the same depth as you're thinking about your child, and the simplest, quickest way I can say this is that we can't rely on the school to support your child. And now I'm not saying this in any sort of way to belittle schools, or because it is like, by law, it is the school's responsibility to offer things. Like, this is in the UK, different in America, different states, different things, and the whole world is completely different. In the UK, it's by law. If your child has dyslexia, it's a learning disability, and they has to, by law, to do things. But it's like, a lot of times the school's busy and they don't oftentimes fulfill what they could fulfill. And it's your job as a parent to be able to push that upon your child, but upon the school. And so let's just explain, what is dyslexia? So this kid is diagnosed with dyslexia, or maybe a new word to you, you probably know about, if you're unsure, it's this thing that may think that, words move around on the page, or you can't read, or something like that. Dyslexia is nothing like that, in terms of, yes, some dyslexics words move around on a page, and yes, most of dyslexics find it hard to read. But the way I like of explaining dyslexia is, dyslexia is this thing that's been around for tens of thousands of years. There's different brain wiring, this kind of thing stuck in our sort of like, what was I going to say, DNA? Genes. It's kind of stuck, there's proven like 6 genes to be like inherited with dyslexia. And they passed on. And they've been around for tens of thousands of years. Not the word or the definition of dyslexia, the dyslexic brain. And as it's gone passed on from generation to generation, because there's strengths in having dyslexia, this thing called dyslexia has been passing on. And it hasn't died out. And only about 140 odd years ago, since the invention of something like the printing press, where words can be printed 1,000, couple thousand, hundreds of words per minute, where reading became more like useful, because there's more words to read and more information to take in, reading became a lot more like of a acquired skill. Then basically this German ornithologist found out that his clients were smart, average to high IQ levels, couldn't read. Some English bloke, and he called it word blindness, some English bloke called it dyslexia. And then from there, it's been kind of 130 odd years of research looking at the negative side of dyslexia, of what they can't do. And only in the last few decades, we started to realize dyslexia is not this one particular thing, it's this holistic thing about their strengths and their weaknesses. And so, and you have to move it from that perspective, but also because you think, well, I can't see my child's strengths, but I can see all my child's weaknesses. The reason by that is society and the education system is all built for people who are neurotypical. Neurotypical means not dyslexic or anything different in the brain. So these 2 words, if you haven't learnt this, there's neurotypical and neurodiverse. Neurotypical basically means neuro, the brain, typical, which means kind of the same. Neurodiverse means neuro, the brain, and the diverse means different brain. And dyslexia, ADHD, autism, and things like that come under neurodiverse. The society, and especially the schooling system, is built by neurotypical people. By people with order, system, structure, reading, writing, this. Neurotypical people. Neurodiverse, we're creative, we're imaginative, we think things outside the box, we're very visionary. And reading and writing comes hard for people with dyslexia. So that's why you can always focus on their always kind of see their weaknesses and not see their strengths, because that's the way society is built. And that's especially the way education is built. So that's the way we've got to understand that dyslexia isn't this positive, negative. Dyslexia is this holistic thing that's negative on some sides and positive on some other sides, and different thinking processing. But yet you're growing up in a school that's designed for people who aren't your child, and the school has to modify themselves, which is obviously a long, hard process. So now, what do you have to do? no, once they have to do, what I'd 100% recommend doing is that, like, sometimes you have a meeting with your teacher, and she says, everything's fine, it's all good, it's all good. It's not all good. It's not all good. You're a parent of the school. You're the, customer, and the school is the business. Does that make sense? Like, because I've worked in schools and I want to be, like, as honest as possible. Like, when teachers chat to parents, they put on, let's say, like a sales thing. Does that make sense? Because on like not saying they're fake or they're being unhonest or anything like that. They frame things and they say things not to be deceiving, but to put things in a positive light. Does that make sense? And also, so one big factor is that like, I see it, like, the teachers are like, basically, there's teachers which are kind of like salespeople or kind of people in charge of the product, and you're kind of the buyer, even though you're not buying anything. Your kid's the product, and does that kind of make sense? They obviously have to make it look good. This is just generally, not genuine. Anyway, so what they say to you may not be 100% kind of, may be seen in a certain light. And that's the first thing. Second thing is that teachers aren't trained on dyslexia. They're not. They've had maybe a few-day workshop on it, and that's it. There's so many signs, there's so many things. They're not trained on dyslexia, and when they are trained on it, they're trained on it just as the negative. So, if the teacher says, everything's fine, it's not fine. If you know that your child's reading at a couple of years below, if you know this, like, your child's not performing like at the same year as everyone else, and there's not a structured plan in place. So, this is the way I think of it. Like, you have a meeting with the teacher. If that doesn't lead to something that's tangible, and what we're looking for here is an individual education plan, IEP. Now, depending on where you are around the world, the kind of wording will change, but it's basically an official document to help your child, to basically highlights that your child's struggling in certain areas and how to move forward. And having a dyslexic diagnosis will massively help with this. So have a chat with the teacher, then get a meeting, so teacher's the first level, teacher's the base level. Then you want a meeting with the SENCO, Special Needs Education Coordinator. That's the person kind of in charge of all the special needs in school. Have a meeting with them. Say your child's struggling and this is it. If the SENCO doesn't do anything, you have a meeting with their head. You know what I mean? You email the head. Because he's the boss. He tells everyone what to do. Everyone kind of does what he says, or she says, or whoever. And that's kind of thing. And you as the parent, it's your job to do these things, and it's the head teacher's job, and the SENCO's job to listen to you. And you have to supply them with evidence, saying, this is what my child's doing, I have these concerns, and here's the proof. And you have one meeting with them, and so basically you have a meeting with them, and you want an individual education plan, meeting with SENCO. If that doesn't work, meeting with head teacher. Then you have an individual education plan, or this plan. It's a structured plan that everyone agrees upon about structured things they can do to improve your child's reading, writing, or whatever. Then what you want to do is before the end of a meeting with the SENCO or the head teacher, very important. If I was parent, if I were you now, take notes. You set up an appointment with them in, let's say, a few months' time. Because what's crucially important, let's say 6 weeks' time or 3 months' time. Because what's crucially important in this time frame, that you collect enough data or evidence with their homework. You mean just do the homework and more evidence of them doing work about, are you seeing the progression? Because in the performance plan they should see in this time they should improve this much. Then with the evidence that you collected, you can see their progress. Then in that meeting again, you haven't in so long time, with your pieces of paper, evidence, you supply them evidence about their results. Because they kind of know the results because they're doing it, but they can't act on their results enough alone. Does that make sense? It's like they can't, like, they don't have the initiative on themselves. Now, the reason why they don't is because there's a lot more kids in the school. And there's a lot more kids to worry about. And the more you go on about them, and this isn't about them, you turning this nasty different person. Be nice to everyone, build a positive relationship with everyone, but let them know that for you, your child's a priority, and you're going to be on their case for it. And then basically in the meeting, you have all this evidence, you show them the evidence, and then work on the second course of action, and always build that relationship up with the teachers. And the three people you've got to focus on: your class teacher, Senko, and the head. Because the reason why it's good for the head, because the head can tell everyone else what to do. Does that make sense? So that's kind of the school setting. And it's not about saying, oh, my child has everything and I want my child to be pampered. No, that's going to make your child in a lot worse situation. It's about working in school as more closely as possible. And don't say, if they say, we've got it underhand, trust us, don't listen to this stupid Theo Goff guy, conquering dyslexia guy. Don't do that. Don't leave it. Don't trust them. Because you can get things done a hell of a lot faster by yourself. With assessments, with diagnoses. It costs more money, but you can get done a lot more faster. So that's the schooling side. Another side is about telling your child they have dyslexia. I spoke to a number of different parents saying about, and the child 14 years old or maybe 11 years old, the parent would know their child's diagnosed with dyslexia for a couple of years, yet they haven't told the child. And if you think about dyslexia, okay, what is dyslexia and how does it affect people? It affects people in two ways. One, it affects people the dyslexic way, the reading, the writing, that kind of way. And another way it affects people, and this is even what I consider a bigger thing because people don't focus on it, is the emotional side of things. How would you feel, and you probably feel this if you're dyslexic yourself, growing up in an environment where people told you you're not good enough, growing in an environment where people were showing you that you're not good enough, that they can't do this and what you can't do. People say keep on trying harder, and you always try harder, and you can't achieve the same results as all your peers. And yet you don't have, yet you can't blame your dyslexia for it, so you blame yourself. You blame it you've used labels, stupid, dumb, idiot, different, all these things. And then you create these meanings of what you should do and shouldn't do, what you can and what you can't do in life. And these meanings and these stories and these beliefs would carry on through years and years and years and years and years, dictating your actions. Calling it dyslexia or calling it something unique, special, not saying, he's special, because once you get to age 12, you can't say, I'm special. People say it about every kid. I'm not special. Okay, what's special about me? Something like dyslexia, that's a unique thing. Something special that they can label all of their differences on. Because if they don't have something they can point their finger saying, this is why I do this, this, and this, they'll point to themselves. And they think something's wrong with ourselves. This is critically important. It's your own decision as a parent to say if a dyslexic has a kid or not. Say if you tell your kid if they have dyslexia or not. It's your decision. And in my opinion, there's a good decision and a bad decision. A good decision is making your child understand that, basically giving something for a child to point to, saying, this is what's different about you. This is what's different about you. There's positives and there's negatives. And it's something like dyslexia. You call it dyslexia or call it some other thing. But it can't be, you're special, you're unique, because they've heard that a million times before. Okay, because if you don't do that, they'll point to themselves and blame themselves. It's not really their fault. But they will think it's their fault. They'll think they're different, dumb, stupid, less than. We don't want to think they're less than, we want to think they're different than. Does that make sense, guys? Really, really important. Now, one of the biggest reasons why parents don't tell their kids that they have dyslexia, so the parents don't know what dyslexia is. The parents think it's negative. Parents think, this is you, and I want to be frank here, because one of the reasons, if you haven't, maybe because you don't know enough about it. And there's 3 books about dyslexia. I mentioned it in my other video. 100% recommend you read. First one called Overcoming Dyslexia. Overcoming Dyslexia. It's the best science-backed approach with dyslexia in the best format. It's quite a big book. Wouldn't recommend starting with that. The second book I would recommend starting is called Overcoming Dyslexia. This book is about the 4 main strengths of dyslexia, and basically what like explains that we have a weakness because we have strength. We have a strength because we have a weakness. Basically meaning that our brain is like in total sum. If we get something less here, we get something plus here. Does that make sense? And it's really, really cool doing that, and it highlights the strengths really clearly and how that can be applied. And the third book is called The Gift of Dyslexia. Now, this book is for, basically, I think of it when neurotypical people who aren't dyslexic read it, they think, oh, this is okay. But when dyslexics read it, they go, this makes perfect sense. This book, I would read it to your child and kind of explain, this is why you do what you do. This is kind of what happens in your brain. And once we learn these books and kind of get to grips with dyslexia, because like it's better to be pointed in the right direction rather than looking in this great landscape called dyslexia and get confused. And pointed in the right direction, learn about it, feel confident about it, and then I would say tell your child that they have dyslexia in a positive way, because the way kind of I remember saying about dyslexia, like early in my diagnosis, I think my parents knew I had dyslexia, and I kind of knew, but wasn't sure. This woman called Valerie Murchie, she helped diagnose me, and then one day we had this little meeting, and at the end of the meeting, we were sitting on these like baby chairs. She got out of her baby chair and sit in my baby chair, which kind of felt like a chair to me because I was little. And then she kind of kneeled down on one knee and said, Theo, you know you have something really, really amazing. You know Albert Einstein is one of the smartest people in the world. I go, yeah? And she said, Albert Einstein has something called dyslexia. I go, what's that? So this is an amazing thing. It's, guess what, Theo? I go, what? Something that you got. You've got dyslexia. And just a massive smile went from my face. And then like from that point, I would like introduce myself saying, hi, my name's Theo, I have dyslexia, kind of thing. But the whole point is to see it in a positive light, not something negative. And the final thing I would say for that, is don't feel, because it feels lonely. It's very, very lonely doing all this by yourself, because all your other friends ain't going through it, like parents, mums or whatever, dads, I don't know. They're most of the time not really going through it. So join Facebook groups, find other people who because it's a hell. You're going through a hell and back. It's not nice at all. And the sooner you realise it's not nice, and the sooner you realise you've got to take responsibility for helping your child, and not give your responsibility to the school. That's the simplest way to put it. Once you realise that, it can be hopefully less painful when you start getting to action rather than, because what's the worst feeling is feeling like hopeless. Like, you know there's a problem, but you don't know where to go or find a solution for it. And then the best way to this is find other people going through it. Facebook, dyslexic Facebook groups. Other mums, other dads who have it for this child. And also, dyslexia is like genetic. Like, because if your child has dyslexia, there's a good chance you or the other partner of the child, like mum or dad, whoever, is dyslexic as well. One or the other, or both, who knows. And then it's good learning, because most adults get diagnosed with dyslexia and finding out because their child's dyslexic. And because their child's dyslexic, they look into themselves. So guys, hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm still doing coaching for it, so I'll leave a link down below. Enjoy, take care, and bye.